Chapter 8, Birmingham, February 28, 1844, by Charles Dickens. The following speech was delivered at a conversazione in aid of the funds of the Birmingham Polytechnic Institution, at which Mr. Dickens presided. You will think it very unwise or very self-denying in me, in such an assembly, in such a splendid scene, and after such a welcome, to congratulate myself on having nothing new to say to you. But I do so, notwithstanding. To say nothing of places nearer home, I had the honor of attending at Manchester, shortly before Christmas, and at Liverpool, only the night before last, for a purpose similar to that which brings you together this evening. And looking down a short perspective of similar engagements, I feel gratification at the thought that I shall very soon have nothing at all to say, in which case I shall be content to stake my reputation, like the Spectator of Addison, and that other great periodical speaker, the Speaker of the House of Commons, on my powers of listening. This feeling, and the earnest reception I have met with, are not the only reasons why I feel a genuine, cordial, and peculiar interest in this night's proceedings. The Polytechnic Institution of Birmingham is in its infancy, struggling into life under all those adverse and disadvantageous circumstances which, to a greater or less extent, naturally beset all infancy. But I would much rather connect myself with it now, however humble, in its days of difficulty and of danger, than look back on its origin when it may have become strong and rich and powerful. I should prefer an intimate association with it now, in its early days and apparent struggles, to becoming its advocate and acquaintance, its fair-weather friend, in its high and palmy days. I would rather be able to say I knew it in its swaddling clothes than in maturer age. Its two elder brothers have grown old and died. Their chests were weak, about their cradles nurses shook their heads and gossips groaned. But the present institution shot up, amidst the ruin of those which have fallen, with an indomitable constitution, with vigorous and with steady pulse, temperate, wise, and of good repute, and by perseverance it has become a very giant. Birmingham is, in my mind and in the minds of most men, associated with many giants, and I no more believe that this young institution will turn out sickly, dwarfish, or of stunted growth, than I do that when the glass slipper of my chairmanship shall fall off, and the clock strike 12 tonight, this hall will be turned into a pumpkin. I found that strong belief upon the splendid array of grace and beauty by which I am surrounded, and which, if it only had 1/100th part of the effect upon others it has upon me, could do anything it pleased with anything and anybody. I found my strong conviction, in the second place, upon the public spirit of the town of Birmingham, upon the name and fame of its capitalists and working men, upon the greatness and importance of its merchants and manufacturers, upon its inventions, which are constantly in progress, upon the skill and intelligence of its artisans, which are daily developed, and the increasing knowledge of all portions of the community. All these reasons lead me to the conclusion that your institution will advance, that it will and must progress, and that you will not be content with lingering leagues behind. I have another peculiar ground of satisfaction in connection with the object of this assembly, and it is that the resolutions about to be proposed do not contain in themselves anything of a sectarian or class nature, that they do not confine themselves to any one single institution, but assert the great and omnipotent principles of comprehensive education everywhere and under every circumstance. I beg leave to say that I concur, heart and hand, in those principles, and will do all in my power for their advancement. For I hold, in accordance with the imperfect knowledge which I possess, that it is impossible for any fabric of society to go on day after day, and year after year, from father to son, and from grandfather to grandson, punishing men for not engaging in the pursuit of virtue and for the practice of crime, without showing them what virtue is, and where it best can be found, in justice, religion, and truth. The only reason that can possibly be adduced against it is one founded on fiction, namely, the case where an obdurate old genie in the Arabian Nights was bound upon taking the life of a merchant, because he had struck out the eye of his invisible son. I recollect, likewise, a tale in the same book of charming fancies, which I consider not inappropriate. It is a case where a powerful spirit has been imprisoned at the bottom of the sea, in a casket with a leaden cover and the seal of Solomon upon it. There he had lain neglected for many centuries, and during that period had made many different vows. At first, that he would reward magnificently those who should release him, and at last, that he would destroy them. Now there is a spirit of great power, the spirit of ignorance, which is shut up in a vessel of leaden composition, and sealed with the seal of many, many Solomons, and which is effectually in the same position. Release it in time, and it will bless, restore, and reanimate society. But let it lie under the rolling waves of years, and its blind revenge is sure to lead to certain destruction. That there are classes which, if rightly treated, constitute strength, and if wrongly, weakness, I hold it impossible to deny. By these classes I mean industrious, intelligent, and honorably independent men, in whom the higher classes of Birmingham are especially interested, and bound to afford them the means of instruction and improvement, and to ameliorate their mental and moral condition. Far be it from me, and I wish to be most particularly understood, to attempt to depreciate the excellent church instruction societies, or the worthy, sincere, and temperate zeal of those reverend gentlemen by whom they are usually conducted. On the contrary, I believe that they have done, and are doing, much good and are deserving of high praise. But I hope that, without offense, in a community such as Birmingham, there are other objects not unworthy in the sight of heaven, and objects of recognized utility which are worthy of support, principles which are practiced in word and deed in polytechnic institutions, principles for the diffusion of which honest men of all degrees and of every creed might associate together, on an independent footing and on neutral ground and at a small expense, for the better understanding and the greater consideration of each other, and for the better cultivation of the happiness of all. For it surely cannot be allowed that those who labor day by day, surrounded by machinery, shall be permitted to degenerate into machines themselves, but on the contrary, they should assert their common origin from their Creator at the hands of those who are responsible and thinking men. There is, indeed, no difference in the main with respect to the dangers of ignorance and the advantages of knowledge between those who hold different opinions, for it is to be observed that those who are most distrustful of the advantages of education are always the first to exclaim against the results of ignorance. This fact was pleasantly illustrated on the railway, as I came here. In the same carriage with me, there sat an ancient gentleman. I feel no delicacy in alluding to him, for I know that he is not in the room, having got out far short of Birmingham, who expressed himself most mournfully as to the ruinous effects and rapid spread of railways, and was most pathetic upon the virtues of the slow-going old stage coaches. Now I, entertaining some little lingering kindness for the road, made shift to express my concurrence with the old gentleman's opinion, without any great compromise of principle. Well, we got on tolerably comfortably together, and when the engine, with a frightful screech, dived into some dark abyss, like some strange aquatic monster, the old gentleman said it would never do, and I agreed with him. When it parted from each successive station, with a shock and a shriek as if it had had a double tooth drawn, the old gentleman shook his head, and I shook mine. When he burst forth against such newfangled notions, and said no good could come of them, I 999 not contest the point, but I found that when the speed of the engine was abated, or there was a prolonged stay at any station, up the old gentleman was at arms, and his watch was instantly out of his pocket, denouncing the slowness of our progress. Now I could not help comparing this old gentleman to that ingenious class of persons who are in the constant habit of declaiming against the vices and crimes of society, and at the same time are the first and foremost to assert that vice and crime have not their common origin in ignorance and discontent. The good work, however, in spite of all political and party differences, has been well begun. We are all interested in it. It is advancing, and cannot be stopped by any opposition, although it may be retarded in this place or in that, by the indifference of the middle classes, with whom its successful progress chiefly rests. Of this success I cannot entertain a doubt. For whenever the working classes have enjoyed an opportunity of effectually rebutting accusations which falsehood or thoughtlessness have brought against them, they always avail themselves of it, and show themselves in their true characters. And it was this which made the damage done to a single picture in the National Gallery of London, by some poor lunatic or cripple, a mere matter of newspaper notoriety and wonder for some few days. This, then, establishes a fact evident to the meanest comprehension, that any given number of thousands of individuals, in the humblest walks of life in this country, can pass through the national galleries or museums in seasons of holiday-making, without damaging, in the slightest degree, those choice and valuable collections. I do not myself believe that the working classes ever were the wanton or mischievous persons they were so often and so long represented to be. But I rather incline to the opinion that some men take it into their heads to lay it down as a matter of fact, without being particular about the premises, and that the idle and the prejudiced, not wishing to have the trouble of forming opinions for themselves, take it for granted, until the people have an opportunity of disproving the stigma and vindicating themselves before the world. Now this assertion is well illustrated by what occurred respecting an equestrian statue in the metropolis, with respect to which a legend existed that the sculptor hanged himself, because he had neglected to put a girth to the horse. This story was currently believed for many years, until it was inspected for altogether a different purpose, and it was found to have had a girth all the time. But surely if, as is stated, the people are 99 disposed and mischievous, that is the best reason that can be offered for teaching them better. And if they are not, surely that is a reason for giving them every opportunity of vindicating their injured reputation. And no better opportunity could possibly be afforded than that of associating together voluntarily for such high purposes as it is proposed to carry out by the establishment of the Birmingham Polytechnic Institution. In any case, nay, in every case, if we would reward honesty, if we would hold out encouragement to good, if we would eradicate that which is evil or correct that which is bad, education, comprehensive, liberal education, is the one thing needful and the only effective end. If I might apply to my purpose, and turn into plain prose some words of Hamlet, not with reference to any government or party, for party being, for the most part, an irrational sort of thing, has no connection with the object we have in view. If I might apply those words to education as Hamlet applied them to the skull of Yorick, I would say, "Now hie thee to the council chamber, and tell them, though they lay it on in sounding thoughts and learned words an inch thick, to this complexion they must come at last." In answer to a vote of thanks, Mr. Dickens said, at the close of the meeting, "Ladies and gentlemen, we are now quite even. For every effect which I may have made upon you, the compliment has been amply returned to me. But at the same time I am as little disposed to say to you, 'Go and sin no more,' as I am to promise for myself that I will never do so again. So long as I can make you laugh and cry, I will. And you will readily believe me when I tell you, you cannot do too much on your parts to show that we are still cordial and loving friends. To you, ladies of the institution, I am deeply and especially indebted. I sometimes, pointing to the word boz, in front of the great gallery, think there is some small quantity of magic in that very short name, and that it must consist in its containing as many letters as the 3 graces, and they, every one of them, being of your fair sisterhood. A story is told of an Eastern potentate of modern times, who, for an Eastern potentate, was a tolerably good man, sometimes bowstringing his dependents indiscriminately in his moments of anger, but burying them in great splendor in his moments of penitence, that whenever intelligence was brought him of a new plot or turbulent conspiracy, his first inquiry was, "Who is she?" Meaning that a woman was at the bottom. Now, in my small way, I differ from that potentate, for when there is any good to be attained, the services of any ministering angel required, my first inquiry is, "Where is she?" And the answer invariably is, "Here." Proud and happy am I indeed to thank you for your generosity. 1,000 times, good night, 1,000 times the worse to want your light.